to be green. Like, faith's not supposed to be seen. The sky's not supposed to touch the ground. And I swear it's not supposed to be round. The moon's not supposed to touch the sun. And a two is not supposed to be a one. And the heart's not supposed to weigh a ton. And forever's not supposed to be done. Winter's not supposed to come in June. And I am not supposed to have the blues. There are so many things that are not supposed to be, babe, except you and me. There are so many things that I'm not supposed to be. Ooh, baby, yeah, except you and me. Night's not supposed to be long. Yeah. No one is supposed to be alone. Understanding is not supposed to be confused. And the wind is not supposed to lose. Like fire's not supposed to freeze. But like joy is not supposed to breathe. Like you are not supposed to leave. When I said I'm not supposed to leave. He is not supposed to have your heart. Baby, we are not supposed to be apart. There are so many things that are not supposed to be said. You and me. There are so many things that are not supposed to be. Hey, baby. It seems just like no seasons changing. This earth with no creation, or a heart with no feelings, or a sickness without a healing, just like a frozen spring, or a bird with no wings, just like a song out of key. That's how my life would be, like the night skies with no stars, a lonely road, no holding hand walks in the park. That's how I wanna be if we wanna part. There are so many things, yeah, except love. So many things that are not supposed to be. Like having nowhere to be. Like having nowhere to breathe. Like having no rain for the sea. There are so many things that's not supposed to be. Not supposed to be. Except you and me. Baby. Yeah, yeah. Baby. Yeah. Except you and me. Sometimes you can't trust me, but I know you can trust me. They switch up on you. They switch up on you. Do some shit you ain't never imagined they ever do to you, man. It's crazy. It's like, I don't know who to trust. Everybody switching up. I can't trust these niggas. No, I can't trust these hoes. Niggas be shooting, but they put niggas down. So I'ma just stick to myself. Cause I can't trust these niggas. No, I can't trust these hoes. Don't trust no nigga, not even the one you rockin' with. Cause they'll switch up a stitch on you when you least suspect it. If you live in the street, you gotta keep protection. All up on my money, I be grinding while you niggas rest. I left him like a brother, and T showed me his true color. Said he rock with us, but fucking with the suckers on the under. Lesson learned, be mistaken, I will make another. Been fucking up, my family want me to do better. Trust is who's keeping everybody together. If we ain't got that, then how the fuck we go out together? I'm not a bad person, I just grew up with no guidance. And through the years, I learned the hand to feed you, don't bite it. My brother always told me, keep the ones who keep around you. When you broke, they ain't here. When you got it, that's when they around you. Fuck the niggas, you don't need them around block by yourself, shoot by yourself, make music come up by yourself. I get it on my own, I really don't need the help. I'm thugging on my own, cause I can't tell on my fucking self. How you should be the first to start snitching niggas, bitches. Shitting hard, but they really ain't with it. Just be talking out his neck for the fan bitches. Put on the show for what a nigga really been that serious. How you claim what you don't got? I'm just being curious. Stay on 10, cause this beat shit is getting serious. I don't know who to trust. Everybody switching up. Fuck 'em. I can't trust these niggas. Fuck 'em. I can't trust these hoes. Fuck 'em. Niggas be shooting, but they can't tell. So I'ma just stick to myself. Cause I can't trust these niggas. I can't trust these hoes. Fuck 'em. I don't got no trust for none of you niggas. Fuck 'em. I don't got no trust for none of you bitches. I don't got no trust for none of you niggas. Yo, I don't got no trust for none of you bitches. You bitches. I don't trust for none of you niggas. None of you niggas. I don't trust for none of you bitches. You bitches. I don't trust for none of you niggas. Yo, I don't got no trust for none of you bitches. I don't know who to trust. I don't know who to trust. Everybody switching up. Everybody switching up. But I ain't worried about a thing. I ain't worried about a thing. Keep doing my thing and flex on you. I don't know who to trust. Everybody switching up. Everybody switching up. But I ain't worried about a thing. I ain't worried about a thing. Keep doing my thing and flex on you. I don't know who to trust. I don't know who to trust. Everybody switching up. Everybody switching up. Trust these niggas. No, and I can't trust these hoes. Niggas be shooting, but they put the tail. So I'ma just stick to myself. Fuck 'em. I can't trust these niggas. Fuck 'em. I can't trust these hoes. RP Lodge, my nigga. RP Lodge, my nigga. Gang. Lodge, my nigga. Gang.
All right, y'all. Hey, everybody. Welcome to my channel. I am your host, Holly the Next, presents Pieces of the Puzzle. Okay? We are about to get into some serious commentary today. Now, some of this stuff has been read prior, but it never have been read by yours truly, Pieces of the Puzzle. Okay? So, as I get into this content, this commentary, I'm going to be reading it from the actual sealed indictment of Richard Arline Jr. I think it's very important to look at every piece of the puzzle that has been put out here because I myself never read it, but I heard it read on other platforms. I'm going to be putting that together along with some audio that I screen record when I hear people speak of certain things that may be relevant to what I am about to read to you guys. So I know us supporters, true supporters of R. Kelly, is here for the injustice. We're also here for the truth. We just want to know everything that has transpired around Robert Sylvester Kelly and the accusations that were swarming out here in 2017, 18, with prior to Surviving R. Kelly coming out. We know what Don Russell has done. We know what Michael Williams has done. And we even heard of what Richard Arline Jr. has done, along with testifying against R. Kelly in his New York trial, stating that he was a John Doe. So I'm going to read this because I want to gain some understanding. There were people brought up in this sealed complaint or the sealed affidavit against Richard Arline Jr., and it ultimately led to R. Kelly, the government able to put together what they considered an enterprise. Okay, so the enterprise, as we know it to be, consists of two or more. And we kept saying, where's the other people who should be charged with R. Kelly? Well, here they are. We have Don Russell, who's facing his own upcoming trial. We have Michael Williams, who was recently convicted for his participation in this in R. Kelly's situation, whom they considered him a part of the enterprise because they alleged that he did things on behalf of R. Kelly. So we know he's now convicted and sentenced to 8 years, which, if you guys are following my community area, you'll notice that he has put in an appeal. Okay, it could be because some information was left out. He was unaware. We know he took a deal, and so, but even though he took the deal, the reason he probably, and this is just my own opinion, stating that he's able to put his appeal in is because some information has become available that he was unaware of prior to taking his deal. So if he wasn't aware that Don Russell was orchestrating certain things, and I'm just throwing that out as an example, then you can understand why he took the deal. But knowing now what he knows, he's like, hold on, I just got played. I just got railroaded. So I took a deal, and now I'm serving 8 years and people are out here. And so I can understand, where he potentially could be coming from, but yet he still took ownership for his involvement, and because of it, R. Kelly was and is convicted, along with the involvement of what Don Russell has done, and now R. Kelly is convicted, and Richard Arline, his participation in what he did. We're about to get into all of that, along with the fact that he did testify against R. Kelly as one of the alleged John Does. And so, because of that alone, and his participation in what I'm about to read to you guys, also was the reason the government was able to put together a Rico charge against R. Kelly that ultimately got him convicted. Okay, so that's just giving you guys a little briefing on what's to come. And like I stated, I also have some recordings that was played on other platforms in support of this here, what I'm about to read. I have yet to read it myself. I only heard of this stuff on other platforms, but I think it's important to do your own reading and do your own research, because then you will be able to come up with your own understanding for your own satisfactory. Okay, because you can't be satisfied with understanding something that you really just did not read or research yourself. Okay, and definitely the truth is definitely coming out. That's real talk. And before I get any further, shout out to the legal team that is fighting behind the scenes to in support of their client Robert Sylvester Kelly. One is on the screen here, Devereaux Canic, aka Ma Mechanic, as well as Jennifer Bonjean. Okay, and whoever else is on the legal team, shout out to them as well. But I feel that Jennifer is definitely the breath of fresh air that we all been waiting for. So, with that being said, and without further ado, let me bring this to you guys in the way it's presented in the document. United States District Court. Eastern District of New York, United States of America, against Richard Arline Jr. Now, before I go further, I'm sorry, I must say, a lot of stuff may be a revelation to myself, things that may flew over my head, but because again, I did not read this. Only others have read it, but I have yet to be one of the ones to read it. So, with my reading, my understanding, my legal experience and background, I think I can bring a lot of pieces to the puzzle. But what I will ask is that whatever pieces of the puzzle that you guys are hearing come out in this, I want you guys to leave a comment. If you don't catch the live broadcast live, leave a comment, because I want to hear what's your thoughts on what I'm reading, and who you guys may be missing as also involved in this takedown of R. Kelly. I've always said it's his inner circle. Others have stated it's his inner circle, but some people don't want to name drop. Some people don't want to call it like they see it. But over here at Pieces of the Puzzle, we say what we mean and we mean what we say. We definitely keep it real all day, every day. So if somebody is in this reading and they look suspicious, we're going to drop these pieces, because we can't leave a stone unturned. We have to cross our T's and we must definitely dot our I's. We're not his legal team. We're just supporters out here supporting Mr. Robert Sylvester Kelly, because we over here at Pieces of the Puzzle, we just want the truth. We just want to know. We're tired of these mysteries. We're tired of these unsolved crimes. We're tired of people being convicted and falsely accused, and then there's no repercussions for the people who was a part of the actual initiative setup. I was dialoguing on Twitter with the individual, and shout out to her or him, because they have been very forceful in this fight as well. And because they're not a blogger, they don't get the same recognition. But I want them to know that I see you and I support you, and I thank you for your return support, as well as everybody in the chat. So, okay, so there was something else I wanted to say. It slipped my mind, but it'll come back, because anything important is definitely going to resurface itself. So, okay, let's get into the reading. So the United States District Courts, Eastern District of New York, United States of America against Richard Arline Jr., the defendant. Eastern District of New York, SS Sylvette Reynoso, being duly sworn, deposes and states that she is a special agent with the United States Department of Homeland Security. Homeland Security investigators, duly appointed according to law and acting as such. And moderators, I'm not in the chat reading it, so I please ask that you see a disrespectful comment, anything that's distracting, just block them. I'm not hurting for numbers. I only want to get the truth out as I'm reading it for myself for the very first time to the supporters over here at Pieces of the Puzzle. So if you see it, just block them. We're not timing them out today. We're just blocking because that's just what we need to do. We don't need to be distracted because we know there's a lot of people out here trying to distract us. I'm focused on what's important and not what's irrelevant. Okay, so back to the reading. Duly sworn, deposes and states that she is a special agent with the United States Department of Homeland Security. Homeland Security investigation, duly appointed according to law and acting as such. Oh, I'm sorry, I should have read this. This was to be filed under seal. Okay, this is an affidavit support of an arrest warrant for Richard Arline Jr., but they sealed it and they ended up releasing it prior to R. Kelly's trial. So, like I said, this came out already, but this is my first time reading. Okay. On or about and between January the 9th, 2020, and June 2020, both dates being approximate and inclusive within the Eastern District of New York and elsewhere, the defendant, Richard Arline Jr., together with others, did knowingly and intentionally attempt to corrupt, persuade another person, to wit Jane Doe, whom we know is Azriel Clary, an individual whose identity is known to the affiant, and engage in misleading conduct towards Azriel Clary with intent to influence, delay, and prevent the testimony of Azriel Clary in an official proceeding, to wit United States versus Robert Sylvester Kelly, criminal docket number 19-286, AMD Title 18 United States Code, Section 1512B1, 2, and 3551, ET SEQ, on or about and between January the 9th, 2020 and June 2020. Well, June 2020. Both dates, so that means from January 2020 through June 2020, both dates being approximate and inclusive within the Eastern District of New York and elsewhere. The defendant, Richard Arline Jr., together with others, did knowingly, intentionally, and corruptly offer a thing of value to Jane Doe. Okay, so this is what he's charged with. And then when you think about it, this is what R. Kelly is going to be dealing with in his upcoming trial in Chicago, because they stated that he was um, tampering with the evidence and the witnesses and paying them to not come to court. So the fact that Richard Arline Jr. had did this in the New York case, they're going to try to pin this that he did this also in the Chicago case. Okay, so that's how these pieces of the puzzle goes together. Okay, now um both dates being approximate and inclusive within the Eastern District of New York and elsewhere. The defendant, Richard Arline Jr., together with others, did knowingly, intentionally, and corruptly offer a thing of value to Jane Doe, an individual whose identity is known to the affiant, with intent to influence the testimony under oath and affirmation of Jane Doe as a witness upon a trial, hearing, and other proceedings before a court authorized by the laws of the United States to hear evidence and take testimony, to wit the United States District Courts for the Eastern District of New York, and with the intent to influence Jane Doe to absent herself therefrom. Okay, so like I said, they're trying to make it look like the same thing he's charged with in Chicago, that he had paid off the land fares to get rid of them, send them out of the country so they could not participate in the trial. So seems like the people who allegedly set him up the first time is somehow involved again this time around. And this time they was going to make sure that it sticks, because it didn't stick the first time, but this time, with everybody's participation, it stuck. Okay, but we'll get to that when we get there. Now, okay, the Title 18 United States Code, Section 201B, 3, 2, and 3551 ETSEQ. The source of, oh, this is what I was going to say. It says that Richard Arline, hold on, let me go back up to that, Jr., together with others. Can anybody put in the chat whom they believe, okay, is the other people that is involved with Richard Arline Jr.? That was the question that I have. And I'm going to highlight that. Can anyone put in the chat whom they feel is the others involved with Richard Arline Jr.? If you know, put it in the chat. And there it goes. I'm going to highlight that. I want y'all to put the pieces together. I'm going to present the puzzle, and I'm going to let y'all put the pieces out here. Um, and I will highlight y'all comments as to who y'all think is the other people together who did this along with Richard Arline, uh, to be able to, get um, R. Kelly fucked up. We've heard that word before, getting him fucked up. And that came from this individual right there. That is true, Stephanie. She knew them. I want to see. Don't leave nobody out. We're not excluding nobody. And this is what I wanted to say. Like I told you, if it's important, it'll come back to me. This is what I wanted to say. Um, is that I know that I made a statement last week that I was going to confirm with everybody as to the facts of the letter. Okay. But the individual who was in communications with me has yet to respond to me. And one thing I don't do is call around and chase nobody. Okay. If you say something, your word to me is your bond. So if you don't keep your word, you have broken your bond, and your word is your everything. You are nothing without your word. Okay. We're going to read this. And when we read this, this question will remain until I have another question for y'all. Okay. And we'll see if y'all can figure out who also is involved. Okay. I know what I know. My receipts don't lie. You know what I'm saying? My receipts don't lie. And so, because I have lots of pieces to the puzzle, I'm just gonna put the puzzle out here and let y'all put the pieces together. Like I said, I have some audio that I will be dropping, okay? But we just have to sit through this content and this commentary. So let me just continue, and thank you guys for putting your thoughts in the chat. Now, I am a special agent with the United States Department of Homeland Security, Homeland Investigated, HSI, and have been since 2008. I am currently assigned to HSI's New York field office, and more specifically to a squad that investigates human trafficking and alien smuggling matters. Previously, I was assigned to narcotics and counter proliferation squads. I am responsible for conducting and assisting in investigations. Hold on, somebody is reaching out. Okay. Investigations into the activities of individuals and criminal groups responsible for sex and human trafficking and related offenses. In that capacity, I have participated in investigating involving the debriefing of sex trafficking and sex abuse victims, review of telephone records, cell site locations, and GPS data, review of money transfer records, surveillance analysis of PIN register information, and the the execution of search warrants, including the execution of search warrants on computers and other electronic media. As a result of my training and experience, I am familiar with the techniques and methods of operations used by individuals involving in criminal activity to conceal their activities from detection by law enforcement authorities. Because the purposes of this complaint is set forth only those facts necessary to establish probable cause to arrest, I have not described all of the relevant facts and circumstances of which I am aware of. Okay. Now, the U.S. Attorney's Office of the Eastern District of New York and the Department of Homeland Security investigator, New York Field Office are investigating Robert Sylvester Kelly, also known as R. Kelly, and also and others for their participation in a racketeering. Okay, this is like I said, this is what got R. Kelly a racketeering charge, aka Rico, considering to be an enterprise, is because of what I'm about to start reading, and others for their participation in a racketeering enterprise involving bribery, extortion, the production of child pornography, transportation of women and girls across the state lines to engage in illegal sexual activity, including sexual contact with individuals who were too young to consent to such activities under state law, and failure to notify sexual partners of a sexual transmitted disease prior to engaging in sexual intercourse in violation of state law and related substantive offenses, and for arranging for travel in interstate commerce with intent to promote, manage, establish, and carry on extortion in violation of state law. On June 20th, 2019, a grand jury in the Eastern District of New York returned an indictment charging Kelly with racketeering involving predicate racketeering acts to 5 different women and 4 Mann Act violations. See United States versus Robert Sylvester Kelly, criminal docket number 19-286, AMDEDNY. On July the 10th, 2019, the grand jury returned a superseding indictment, which added a forfeiture allegation. On December the 5th, 2019, the grand jury returned a second superseding indictment, adding an additional predicate act of bribery. On March the 12th, 2020, the grand jury returned a third superseding indictment, the indictment against Kelly. Among the charges against Kelly in the indictment were offenses that carried a 10-year mandatory minimum sentence based on Kelly's sexual relationship with Jane Doe, an individual whose identity is known to the affiant, when she was just 17 years old, and they're speaking about Azriel Clary. A review of telephone records for a cellular telephone number used by the defendant Arline Jr. with a 708 area code and ending in 7687. Herein, after the Arline 7687 telephone shows that Arline Jr. communicated with 2 telephones used by Kelly prior to Kelly's federal arrest. Okay, so let's just break some of this down and let's make some of this make sense. So, Richard Arline Jr. has someone who had R. Kelly's phone, or Mr. Kelly himself, is what they're saying. He was in communications with R. Kelly prior to R. Kelly's arrest. Okay, so just make that make sense there. So communicated with 2 telephones used by Kelly prior to Kelly's federal arrest and incarceration in July 2019. The records also show that the defendant Arline Jr. was in telephone contact with the telephones believed to be used by the individual's identities herein as I1, I3, I4, and I5, whose identities are known to the affiant. So that means that the feds already know who I1, I3, I4, and I5 is. Okay. Now, if y'all know who I1, 3, 4, and 5 is, this may be the time to put your predictions out here. Okay. So, like I said, we're going to be breaking down this puzzle one piece at a time. Now, these identities are known to the affiant. Telephone records also shows that I3 was in contact with telephones used by Kelly prior to federal arrest and incarceration in July 2019. The records also show that Arline Jr. was in telephone contact with other telephone numbers that also were in telephone contact with Kelly prior to his federal arrest and incarceration in July 2019. The available records do not show any telephone contact between Art Arline Jr. and any telephone known or believed to be used by the individuals identified herein as I-2. So that means that the available records do not show any telephone contact between Richard Arline Jr. and any telephones known or believed to be used by the individual identified herein as I-2. So whoever I-2 is never had communications with Richard Arline from the what the records shows. Now, whose identity is known to the affiant, but the available records do not reflect iMessages or FaceTime telephone calls. On January the 8th, on R. Kelly's birthday, 2020, Azriel Clary began cooperating with federal law enforcement. Several news outlets reported that Azriel Clary was cooperating with federal law enforcement, and I myself, and not to toot my own horn, but I most definitely told y'all prior to her participating, she was already participating with the federal law enforcement. And if you go back and listen to her parents when they said they went to the feds, and the feds said there was nothing that they can do because their daughter was 18 years old, and that if she wanted to press charges, she would have to be the one to do so. So when you hear that, that means that the parents tried to get R. Kelly federally indicted, but they couldn't do it because they needed the alleged victim to make her own statement, which she had to have made in order for them to keep putting her name in these allegations and these charges against Robert Sylvester Kelly. So with my common knowledge and common sense, as R. Kelly said, use your common sense. So me using my common sense, I saw that she was working with the authorities, the federales, and then I kept exposing it. And of course, it took for Tasha K, who is a bigger blogger, put it out there, and so people wanted to hear her rather than the little YouTubers, who's actually the real investigators who has broke this case. Okay, now information provided by Jane Doe has been corroborated by other evidence, including information obtained from other witnesses, evidence seized from electronic devices, documentary devices, evidence, telephone records, text messages, and consensual records. Jane Doe has engaged the services of a lawyer and may seek civil remedies against Kelly in the future. Prior to her cooperation with federal law enforcement, while she's still engaged in a, let's see, because they went from that to something else. Let's see, in a relationship with R. Kelly in a March 2019 television interview following Kelly's arrest on various sexual misconduct charges involving underage girls brought by the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. Jane Doe publicly claimed that she did not have sex with Kelly when she was 17 years old. Jane Doe has advised that such statements were false and made publicly at Kelly's direction. So you're going to hear a lot of people say, R. Kelly did it. R. Kelly did it. R. Kelly told me to do this. R. Kelly told me to do that. So when you hear people use R. Kelly's name freely, it makes you wonder, are you a part of the group of people who has been also saying, I was authorized to do this by R. Kelly. I was authorized to release this because of R. Kelly. R. Kelly reached out to me. R. Kelly told me to do this. R. Kelly told me to do that. He didn't want nobody else to do it. He want me to do it because I got numbers and I'm this and I'm that. But let me just tell you about that, okay? If you're listening, let me just tell you about that. So by you doing that, you're no different from these people who have been federally indicted because they did stuff uh, with others. Okay, that's why they say with others. Okay, on the behalf of R. Kelly. So you have other people instructing things to be done because they said R. Kelly said it. Okay, we're gonna get all into this today. I promise you, we ain't gonna leave a stone unturned. So now, let's go to this very important part. Somebody is putting the facts in the chat. I'm not highlighting it because it's gonna take away my question off the screen. But somebody has hit on it, and when I tell you they hit on it, baby, they hit on it. Now, y'all put these pieces out here. I'm just putting the puzzle on the table. Okay. All right. Now, let's see. I don't want to miss nothing. Okay. So, among the charges against Kelly in the indictment were offenses that carried it to. Okay, we read that on Kelly's sexual relationship with Jane Doe, that she wasn't 17. We read that. Okay, a review of telephone records for the cellular phone. We did that. Okay, and then we was right there. Here we are. On January the 9th, 2020 at 3:16 a.m. I mean, y'all sleep at 3:16 in the morning. I probably was snoring and some more stuff at 3:16 a.m. But anyway, at 3:16 a.m., an individual using the Instagram account rich underscore dollars underscore with vanity name hood rich. Dumb shit. Hereinafter, the Hood Rich Instagram account sent Jane Doe a private message to her Instagram account that read, "You okay, baby?" Jane Doe did not recognize Hood Rich and did not respond. Based on a review of publicly accessible content on the Hood Rich Instagram account, including that apparent selfie images posted on the account resembles a photograph of Arline Jr. There is probable cause to believe that this account belongs to the defendant Richard Arline Jr. On or about May 26, 2020, I1 who had been in communications with Jane Doe. Do anybody know who I1 is who's in communications with Jane Doe? Exchanged the following series of text messages via iMessage with Jane Doe. I1 says, "I have something to tell you." I1 says, "Rob is trying to get his cousin Rich in contact with you because he wants to pay you for silence." Now, who in the hell would text some criminating information like this to show that allegedly R. Kelly is willing to silence alleged victim, knowing he's fighting his case for his life and he is has proclaimed his innocence from day one. But anyway, Rich called me and I said first name of Jane Doe is done with Rob, meaning Azriel is done with Rob, and she don't want shit from him and won't sign her name away to the devil. Following her receipts of the above text message, Jane Doe advised a federal law enforcement agent involved in the investigation of her receipts of the text message at the direction of federal law enforcement. Jane Doe thereafter continued to communicate with I1 regarding the subject matter of Cousin Rich and payment by Rob via text message using iMessage. Now, who could be so damn dumb as to wanting to act on R. Kelly's behalf? Is this is what the pattern of behavior has been? I'm following the pattern, okay? To want to even say any crap like this, but I promise you, we may find out who else is involved when we're concluded with the reading of Richard Arline Jr.'s sealed indictment. This is crazy. Now, uh, Jane Doe, I'm just curious as to how much Rob is trying to give me. Jane Doe, when did he call you? Because he texted me in January after everything in Chicago. Hiya, and this is A1, I mean I1 now. Hiya, I just called Rich and he wants to do a three-way call with us. Three, question. Can you do that right now? Question. Jane Doe. Dang, I actually have a full schedule today, but we can do it later. already woke up mad late. I1. Rich talked to Rob on the regular. And the only reason why I know Rich is telling the truth because Rob told him to get in touch with Bear, and Rich asked me who was Bear, and I said you. Mm, 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 mm. Based on my participation in the investigation, there is probable cause to believe that the Rob in the above text message is reference to Kelly. On the evening of May 26, 2020, at the direction of law enforcement, Jane Doe called I1, and I1 thereafter called the individual I1 referred to as Kelly's cousin Rich, who there is probable cause to believe that the defendant, Richard Arline Jr., and conferenced the telephone calls so that Jane Doe, I1, and Arline Jr. were in a three-way telephone call. A review of the telephone records for the R line 7687 telephone at the telephone used by I1 shows that the R line 7687 telephone was used for the three-way call with I1, Jane Doe, and Arline Jr. A few hours later, at the direction of the enforcement, Jane Doe participated in a telephone call with Arline Jr. over the R line 7687 telephone a second time. The telephone calls were recorded by law enforcement with the consent of Azriel Clary. A law enforcement agent listened to the two calls described in the above paragraph during their transmission, and law enforcement agents have also reviewed the recordings of the calls. In the calls, Arline Jr. and Azriel Clary repeatedly referenced the first name of I2. Jane Doe has advised that I too was a close associate of Kelly who had access to Kelly's funds, equaling money, since Kelly was incarcerated in July 2019, a federal detention facility. I tell you, these chips be falling all over the place, but this is what you call pieces of the puzzle. Woo! Lord have mercy. Everybody's hands just really ain't clean. Law enforcement agents have further reviewed telephone calls placed by Kelly or at the direction of Kelly. Oh, wow. Let me go back. Law enforcement agents have further reviewed telephone calls placed by Kelly or at the direction of Kelly, which calls are recorded pursuant to the Federal Bureau of Prisons policy to record all non-legal calls placed by inmates, and have determined that Kelly regularly directs I2 or others to direct I2 to make distributions of money. Mm, mm, It's a dirty game. So basically, what I'm getting from this, y'all is all on it in the chat. That's all I'm gonna tell y'all. I'm not holding back. You know what I'm saying? I don't like to be played with. I don't like to be lied to. And I have a problem with that. Okay. You can't say you're going to do something and don't follow up with it, because then I have to throw you under the bus. I'm not here to spare nobody but R. Kelly. Okay. So when y'all know what y'all know, let's put these I1s and these I2s together. And baby, we're going to put these pieces to the puzzle together, one piece at a time. So this is going to start making sense to what Don Russell has stated when he comes out and he speaks and he's throwing people under the bus. Is starting to make sense to me. And plus, what I know 110% facts, because y'all know I come with nothing but receipts, baby. So anyway, at the direction of Kelly. So again, people are saying R. Kelly is directing this, which calls are recorded pursuant to the Federal Bureau of Prison uh, policy to record all non-legal calls placed by inmates, and have determined that Kelly regularly. Oh, so this is a known fact. Is what this is coming out. This is a known fact. This is not an allegation. This is not alleged. This is a fact that because the Federal Prisons Bureau records phone calls, and have determined that R. Kelly regularly, okay, he regularly directs I2. He regularly directs I2 or others to direct I2 to make certain distributions of money. Okay, so this is a known fact because the Federal Bureau of Prisons policy is to record these calls, and this is what they have captured in these recordings. Okay, in substances during the recorded three-way telephone call described in paragraph 9 above by Arline Jr. discussed a proposal in which Azriel would receive $500,000 in exchange for not continuing to cooperate with the government against Kelly. Following in a transcript of that portion of the three-way call described in paragraph number 9, Arline Jr., they threw out a number. Now, Jane Doe says, so what's the number that they threw out? And Arline Jr. said, I talked to first name of I2. I talked to first name of I2, and he was kind of like, hey man, what do you think you can do? Cause I don't, I threw out a number. I'm like, I'm thinking 100,000. He was like, man, that's she ain't gonna go for that. Mm. So I2, what was you doing? You was really trying to um pay her off, and these conversations are recorded. This is a bunch of crock of shit. People ain't loyal, baby. They ain't loyal. And then Jane Doe says never. Arline Jr. says, I'm like, what you thinking? He's was like excuse me, 500,000. Jane Doe says, I wouldn't go for a 500,000 either. Arline Jr. says, "Oh yeah, you I mean, what you trying to do?" Jane Doe then told Arline Jr. over the Arline 7687 telephone that she would need $1 million and wanted Arline Jr. to send her a small sum of money within the next 24 hours as a sign of good faith. Mm, 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 mm. During one of the consensually recorded telephone calls described in paragraph 9, Arline Jr. explained how he had communicated with Kelly, who was incarcerated. Jane Doe, this is her response. I just I just want to know how are you talking to Rob, cuz I mean at least when we were talking to him, he was saying that his calls were limited and stuff like that. So I'm just trying to figure out, like, and then Arline Jr. said, yeah, he normally he talks to first name of I2. First name of I2. Jane Doe says, yeah, first name of I2. Yeah. And then Arline Jr. says, yeah. So normally he talks to first name of I2. He has first name of I2 call me on a like a three-way call. I don't I don't I don't know what number first name of I2 has for him, but he normally calls me on three-way calls before he went to jail. He wanted me to get in contact with first name of I1. So I got in contact with first name of I1. Me and first name of I1 go to school together. So here's Jane Doe. Right. Yeah. I remember him telling me that. That's the only time I remember him ever mentioning you. But he told me, like, that something different, that nickname of I1 was getting in touch with you. Arline Jr. says, okay, yeah, he, yeah, I don't, I don't know what the hell he be having going on. The stories or his lies or what the hell he got going on. I just know, I just know he got some issues. I love him, but he got to fix the issues. And when I talked to him about you personally, he said, can you see if you can get in contact with Bear and fix it for me with first name of I1? So I reached out to on Instagram first, Jane Doe. So when did he call you to fix it? Like he did he like did he did you did he email you? Because around January when you reached out to me, we were just emailing each other. So how did he reach out to you? He called you like from MCC? Arline Jr. Trying to exactly remember how the hell did it work out, because I remember that it was a little bit after his birthday or something. I had talked to him. Jane Doe, right. Arline Jr. Yeah, so that was around that time. Then we ended up talking again, and he was like, can you see what's going on with Bear? And can you keep this between you and first name of I1? But he always never really wanted to mention the names over the phone. Jane Doe says, right. Arline Jr. said. So I really didn't know who the hell, I really didn't know who Bear was because first name of I1 told me. Based on my participation in the investigation, there is probable cause to believe that in this telephone call, Arline Jr. explained that Kelly and I2 maintained contact with each other while Kelly was in jail. That on or around Kelly's birthday, January 8, 2020. I too called Arline Jr. while I too and Kelly were speaking and they discussed Jane Doe. Bear is a nickname used by Kelly for Azriel Clary. As set forth below during one of the telephone calls described in paragraph number 9, Arline Jr. also made clear to Jane Doe why Kelly would pay for her silence, which he stated he learned from I2 and another individual whose identity is known to the government, I3. Okay? Now, Arline Jr. So, but like I'm saying, I don't want nothing. I tell you to go pass with me, and you cause I see you do your YouTube. Jane Doe, I, Arline Jr. I see you do your YouTube shit, and I ain't trying to be a part of that type of shit. I just want to be part of. And then Jane Doe says, well, if this is to go through, like none of that would even happen, ever, none of that would even matter. That would be irrelevant. It wouldn't even happen anymore. I just need to figure out, like, I don't even, how do you, I'm just trying to figure out how do you even know that this is something that Rob even wants anymore? That's all I'm trying to say because that was in January. Arline Jr., his response is, he definitely you I want from what first name of I4 told me and from what I'm hearing from other motherfuckers, you I first name of I2. Have you ever heard of first name of I3? Jane Doe redacted. Arline Jr. No, first name of I3, one of his homies. First name of I3. Jane Doe says, no. Arline Jr. says, okay, first name of I2 and first name of I3. Remember his homies? First name of I4, the lawyer? Mm, 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 mm. Jane Doe. Sounds very familiar, actually. Arline Jr. Right. So basically, with them there telling me that they claim you got some shit, I don't know what the fuck you might got, some videos or some iPads or whatever you might got, your story. They just want that to disappear. You know what I'm saying, Jane Doe? Yeah. Arline Jr. I don't, I don't really, like I said, really don't know what you got, but they asked me to do something on you. I really don't got no contact with you. I hit you on Instagram. I hollered at first name of I1 one time about it, and she ain't really say nothing. I faded away from it. Mm, 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 mm. Got to go back up because there was some inserts. Law enforcement agents have reviewed the telephone calls between Kelly using a recorded Bureau of Prisons telephone line and a telephone number used by I2 and have not identified any calls where I2 called another individual and conferenced the lines. So whoever I2 is sounds like I2 never conference any phone call. So let's make sure we being very clear here because we don't want to incriminate someone who done nothing wrong. I don't know who these people are. If y'all do, y'all do. I don't. Okay. Now, I too have not identified any calls where I too called another individual and conferenced the lines. Based on my training and experience, however, I am also aware that inmates at federal facilities have been known to access and use contraband cellular telephones to communicate with others without being recorded. In addition, Jane Doe has advised that prior to her cooperation with law enforcement, she received a telephone call from Kelly while he was incarcerated on a non-recorded line. At the time, Kelly explained to Jane Doe that BOP staff member had allowed Kelly to make the calls from a telephone in a BOP office. So this is where I'm going to break this little piece down because you guys remember when earlier on when they was stating that R. Kelly had a cell phone in prison and that and this is before Azriel's cooperation though. Okay. So that means that she was already cooperating because she's the one who informed the prison that R. Kelly had made a call using a non-recorded prison's phone. And she told this to the BOP people because we know that they allegedly went in there and but either way it go, it was from a correctional officer at the time who allowed R. Kelly to use his phone. Okay, that's why they said it was a staff member had allowed Kelly to make the call from a telephone in a BOP's office. Okay, so anyway, they should have been able to locate that call if that was even a fact, since it came from a BOP office. Okay, but anyway, um, and then it says, based on my participation in this investigation, there is probable cause to believe that I4 is an attorney who has represented Kelly, but does not represent Kelly in the United States versus Kelly, criminal docket number 19-286 AMD, currently pending in the Eastern District of New York. Now, we know that attorney, and I'm going to throw alleged out there, is Brian Nix. Okay, that was R. Kelly's personal attorney, and he did have access at one upon a time, which it was revoked once Steve Greenberg found out what he had done. And we know that Brian Nix is connected to Don Russell. Brian Nix is connected to them fake ass sisters. Brian Nix is connected to too many individuals that don't have R. Kelly's best interest at heart, despite how hard they try to go in and convince us that they're for the man and that they're related to the man when clearly there's no DNA test and clearly there's no evidence to prove these people are for Kelly. But anyway, in New York, or the federal case currently pending in the Northern District of Illinois. A review of records for the R line 7687 telephone shows that R line Jr. called a telephone number listed on I4's website on three occasions: March 30, 2020, May 8, 2020, and May 18, 2020. Based on my participation in the investigation, there is probable cause to believe that when Arline Jr. said they claim you got some shit, some videos, or some iPads, and your story, they just want that to disappear. He meant that I2, I3, and or I4 told him that Jane Azriel Clary had access to electronic evidence that could be used against Kelly and that they wanted Jane Doe to not tell her versions of events regarding her relationship with Kelly, i.e., her story. There is further probable cause to believe that when Arline Jr. said, they asked me to do something, he meant that I2 and I3 asked Arline Jr. to contact Azriel Clary, and that when Arline Jr. said, I hit you on Instagram. I hollered at I1 one time about it, and she ain't really say nothing. I faded away with it. He was describing the steps he took to put into action the scheme to bribe Jane Doe, which is Azriel Clary. Specifically, Arline Jr. referenced the time when he contacted Azriel Clary by sending a message to Azriel Clary Instagram account on January the 9th, 2020, and explained that he had asked I1 to get in contact with Azriel Clary, but when I1 did not, he did not take any further actions until now. Thereafter, the direction of law enforcement, Azriel Clary continued to communicate with Arline Jr. over the R-Line 7687 telephone and with the I1 regarding payments by R-Line Jr. to Jane Doe at 1:01 a.m. on May 27, 2020. Jane Doe sent a text via iMessage to the R-Line to the R-Line 7687 telephone that read as Real Clary, Cash App account. I'm going to bed today. Has been long. TTYL means talk to you later. R-Line Jr. responded by iMessage using the R-Line 7687 telephone. Oh, good night. Now, on May 27, 2020 at 12:03 p.m., Arline Jr., using the Arline 7687 telephone, sent a text message via iMessage to Azriel Clary, excuse me, stating, "Good morning. Yeah, first name of I2 said, Rob don't have that to give. Guess he's going to take his chances. If you ever need an opportunity, let me know." Okay. Later that day, later that day, Jane Doe sent a text message via iMessage to I1 that said, "I feel like he was emoji with long nose. How he say Rob had all this money and then today nothing." Second emoji. Initially at 6:10 p.m., 2 minutes after I1 apparently read Azriel Clary's earlier text message, I1 said in part, "Like I said, you and I both knew Rob was low on funds, and again, Rich hasn't spoke with Rob since January. So I don't know." A little over 3 hours later, at 9:32 p.m., I1 wrote in part to Jane Doe. "So Rich told me Rob will give 300,000." Azriel Clary answered in two separate text messages via iMessage in part. "Did Rob speak to Rich? Because he literally just first name of I2 said he didn't have money to give and would take his chances." Emoji. "And that just doesn't make sense. Did one of them talk to Rob?" See, this is a pattern of people saying Rob said this, Rob said that. And even though Jane Doe, Azriel Clary, was working with the feds, and they knew that these phone calls was being recorded. They personally wanted to, they was trying to get confirmation that R. Kelly was behind authorizing this stuff. Okay, they did not want to put this on the man without confirming that he had authorized it. Okay. Um, so Rich just told me Rob will give 300,000. Azriel Clary answered in two separate text messages via iMessage in part. Did Rob speak to Rich? Because he literally just said, uh, first name of I2 said he didn't have money to give and would take his chances. Emoji. And that just doesn't make sense. Did one of them talk to R. Kelly or Rob? On May 29, 2020 at 12:40 p.m., Arline Jr., using the Arline 7687 telephone, sent the text message via iMessage to Jane Doe that read, "I'm in Florida. significantly. Azriel Clary resides in Florida. At the direction of law enforcement agents, Azriel Clary therefore, after called the R line 7687 telephone, which call was consensually recorded. During the call, Arline Jr. told Jane Doe, Azriel Clary, that he was in Miami. Their call was then cut off. At 7:35 p.m., Arline Jr., using the Arline 7687 telephone, sent text message via iMessage to Jane Doe that read, I thought she told you I was coming out here. I would have bumped into you and holler at you. And yeah, also him or her, I was vacationing in Miami and we could have talked about everything. Based on my training, experience, and participation in investigation, I believe that these texts Arline Jr. was referring to his belief that I1 had told Jane Doe that he was traveling to Florida. I thought I thought he or she told you I was coming out here. And his interest in seeing Azriel Clary in person, I would have bumped into you and hollered at you. On June the 3rd, 2020, the Honorable P. Kevin Castell, United States District Judge for the Southern District of New York, excuse me, authorized the excuse me, authorized the interception of a wire and electronic communications occurring to and from the R line 7687 telephone for a period of 30 days. Herein after the R line wire tap. Monitoring of the R line 7687 telephone began on June the 4th, 2020. The R line wiretap did not capture FaceTime calls over the R line 7687 telephone or iMessages sent or received by R line 7687 telephone. On June 10th, 2020, at 7:51 p.m. Eastern Time, Azriel Clary, at the direction of the law enforcement, sent the text message via iMessage to Arline Jr. on the R line 7687 telephone, which read, Hey, haven't heard from you in a minute. We still good? Arline Jr. answered, Yeah, we good. How you doing? And Azriel Clare responded, Haven't heard from you, so I don't know where we stand. These iMessages were not intercepted over the wire, but Jane Doe provided copies of these messages to law enforcement. On June the 10th, 2020, at 8:08 p.m. Eastern Time, hashtag 192, Arline Jr. called I5, an individual who has posted a series of interviews on YouTube channel that were favorable to Kelly, including among others an interview of I2. So we know I5 is Dr. Rice. Now, were favorable to Kelly, including among others an interview of I2. At the beginning of the call, after Arline Jr. said, I ain't heard from you in a minute, I5 responded, Oh man, yeah, I had done talk to first name of I3. He said he gon' hit you up, and I know you is been in contact with first name of I4. Arline Jr. then said, How would you how would you feel if I told you I might be able to get you first name of Jane Doe a minute later? Arline Jr. received an incoming telephone call from Azriel Clary describing the following paragraphs and told I5 that he would call him later. I5 said, All right, call me right back. At 8:09 p.m. Eastern Time, 193, at the direction of law enforcement, Jane Doe called Arline Jr. on the Arline 7687 telephone at the beginning of the call, apparently in reference to Jane Doe's iMessage. Arline Jr. said, Jane Doe explained that I1 had not relayed anything to her. She then asked, So have you talked to first name of I2 or anybody? And Arline answered, Yeah, I was just on the phone with him like about 8 this morning. They then had the following exchange. And before I go to that, let me read this insert. Now, what you mean by what Wait, okay, so Richard Arline. Okay, so beginning of the call, apparently in reference to Jane Doe's iMessage, Arline Jr. says, now, what you mean by what? How we stand? Because last time I heard from anybody was first name of I1. She or he was like, what's the what's the most you think he will give me, whatever, like then. And I was like, maybe 300. And she or he said she or he was going holler at you, and I never heard nothing else from either of you all. So I really don't know what's going on. Yeah, she or he just asking like, what's the most he probably would give her. And I told him or her what he said, what she would, what they say, and she or he said she or he was gonna get back with you. So ain't nobody ever get with me. Maybe the price was so low, she or he said might purchase a house, PH, and then she'll UI. And I definitely told him her that he got about like 300 to give. Now here's Jane Doe as real clarity. Okay, well, the 300 is okay. So I just need to know how we going to like go about it. Arline Jr. Oh, okay, yeah, I'll call you. I'll call him, call UI, and tell him that she said that's cool. Like I said, that was like shit near 2 weeks ago when first name of I1 hit me, and she or he was like, what's the most? And I told him or she that shit. I don't know why she or he ain't got get back with me. Like that's what I asked him or her to do 2 weeks ago. And then Jane Doe says, but what did first name of I2 say? And then our line says, oh, I talked to first name of I2. I talked to first name of I2 from UI and about some different things. At the end of the telephone conversation, Jane Doe asked Arline Jr. for a three-way telephone call between uh, Jane Doe, Arline Jr., and I2. Arline Jr. answered, I'll set it up. After Arline Jr. concluded the phone conversation with Jane Doe at 8:17 p.m., hashtag 194, Arline Jr. called I-5. When I-5 asked what she trying to do, Arline Jr. answered, she trying to get money. I-5 answered, I know how to do that. Arline Jr. then said, her ass, man, she thinking Rob gonna pay her to be quiet. Like, man, that shit ain't finna happen. Trying to get first name of I2 on the phone, see what he wanna do, cause in a minute I'ma tell her ass, man, fuck it, cause I might holler at first name of I4. And first name of I4 was like, nah, he ain't trying to pay nobody else but the old Rob, the Rob I know, like first name of I4, don't speak. UI lawyer. Rob, if I had talked to Rob on the phone and Rob got the money, he gonna pay first name of Jane Doe to be quiet. Like if I had a way to talk to Rob being next to him and telling him what's going on without nobody listening to, no feds, nobody. He gonna pay her ass off to be quiet. She got too much. She got too much. And I gotta go back up because there was an insert. A review of records for the R-Line 7687 telephone shows that R-Line Jr., excuse me, using the R-Line 7687 telephone made only one telephone call between 10:54 p.m. Central Time on June 9, 2020 at 10:11 a.m. Central Time on June 10, 2020, and it was his wife. At 8:41 a.m., law enforcement continued to investigate whether R-Line spoke with I2 using a different telephone number or using an Apple FaceTime, iMessage, or another means of communication that would have not been intercepted over the R-Line wiretap. During the conversation, I-5 mentioned that Jane Doe been in cahoots with the FBI and questioned whether a financial settlement for Jane Doe for her silence would even help Kelly at this point, explaining that several of the victims named in the indictment against Kelly had previously received settlements from Kelly and suggested that Jane Doe could not damage Kelly too much. After Arline Jr. and I-5 ended their telephone calls, Arline Jr. sent the text message via iMessage to Jane Doe that read, he got a new spokesman, said Rob not willing to pay you, but was instructed to help you make money in a major way. Based on my participation in the investigation, there is probable cause to believe that he referring to Kelly. Like the prior messages, this iMessage was not intercepted on the R-Line wiretap, but was provided to the law enforcement by Jane Doe at 9:24 p.m. Eastern, hashtag 197. Jane Doe again at the direction of law enforcement called Arline Jr. and told him she was confused. Arline Jr. responded, "Yeah, so shit, I know it. I just seen some shit like that, just blew my mind." Excuse me. um just blew my mind. So shit, I just called first name of one I2. Like I told you, I ain't really been talking to him about y'all since we talked, which was a couple. Okay, so let me stop this a little bit because whoever I2 is, they were trying to implicate I2 as being a willing participant to do certain things that he really didn't have no communications with I2. So I just want to clear that up for whoever knows who I2 is. It sounds like whoever was in communication with Richard Arline was instructing him to throw out I2 and throw I2 under the bus and make it appear as if I2 was willing to do certain things. That's just what I'm getting, but I could be wrong. I don't know. Let's just continue reading. So shit, I just called first name of I2. Like I told you, I ain't really been talking to him about y'all since we talked, which was about 2 weeks ago. So I just called him right now. He like, man, holler at I-5. I'm like, why I need to holler at I-5 for? He like, man, I-5 doing everything for now on he's speaking for Rob. He talking to Rob. And I'm thinking he bullshitting. He like, man, go check out the video. So I go check out the video, first name of I2 on the first name of I2, have a live interview with I-5. And like basically Rob is talking to this dude named I-5. Now, man, wait. During the conversation, Jane Doe asked, "So whose idea was it to pay this 300?" And Arline Jr. said, "No." So when first name of I-1 called me, she or he said, "What's the most?" I said, "Hold on." I told first name of I-2, first name of I-2, like shit. It'll probably be somewhere in the 300s, looking at how much this nigga got. So I went back and told first name I won 300. That was 2 weeks ago. Audio glitch. She or he never responded to me. When Jane Doe acts, and now I-5 is, and so that means I-5 just came in play about 2 weeks ago. Arline Jr. answered, man, probably I think probably a week ago or so, where he been putting this shit in place, where he doing all the talking for him and shit, because he told me, because I talked to first name of I-4 as well. I tried to holler at first name of I-4 about this, the money situation too, and he or she was like, nah, we ain't doing that. And I was like, why? And she or he said, I-5 name too. She or he is like, she or he be on some old other shit though. So that's like when I first talked to him or her, I hollered at him or her and first name of I-2 to see where they was at with the shit. And that's when we all started talking, but she or he knocked it down right away. But first name of I2 was like, yeah, you probably could try to work it out. Based on my participation in the investigation, there's probably cause to believe in the 2 weeks between when Arline Jr. first communicated with Azriel Clary and suggested that Kelly would pay $300,000 for her silence at the time of this June 10th, 2020 phone call. The situation may have changed, including by putting I-5 as opposed to I-2 in charge of the strategy for Kelly, and that I-5 may be less inclined to participate in a direct payoff of Jane Doe. Like I said, they was taking I-2 out of it and replacing I-2 with I-5, and that's my own assumption, and this is confirmation. And like I said, this is the very first time I have ever read this, so you're getting pieces of the puzzle one piece at a time over here. Make sure y'all hit that like button, and any donations are accepted via Cash App. Okay. Anywho, and thanks in advance. And thank you to everybody who has been donating. I get them and I appreciate y'all. Shout out to y'all. Y'all know who y'all is. Now, um, okay, so based on my participation in the investigation, this is a probable cause to believe that in the 2 weeks between when Arline Jr. first communicated with Azriel Clary and suggested that Kelly would pay her $300,000 for her silence, and the time of this June 10th, 2020 telephone call, the situation may have changed, including by putting I-5 as opposed to I-2 in charge of the strategy for Kelly, and that I-5 may be less inclined to participate in a direct payoff of Jane Doe. At 9:27 p.m., hashtag 201, Arline Jr. called I-5 and told I-5 that Jane Doe wanted to have a three-way telephone call with Arline Jr. and I-5, and I-5 agreed. The three-way call finally took place at 9:45, hashtag 207. During the telephone conversation, Arline Jr. clarified in substance that after Jane Doe initially requested a $2 million settlement, Arline Jr. contacted I-2 and I-3, referring to each by their first names. And they said in substance that Kelly could not afford a $2 million settlement. Arline Jr. explained that the $300,000 settlement came about when I-1 called him and asked how much, and that I-3 then called I-2, who suggested 300,000. So I-2, whoever you are, you most definitely was trying to pay her 300,000 because it's right here in black and white. Now, I-5 then told Jane Doe that I-5 would contact I-2 to find out exactly what I-2 meant, and mentioned that I-3 had called I-5 2 weeks ago and told I-5 about the situation. Following the telephone call, Arline Jr. and I-5 spoke again at 10:11 p.m., hashtag 209, and I-5 suggested that Azriel Clary was a loose cannon. Now, before I continue, let me bring in my receipts of that recorded phone conversation between I-5, Arline Jr., and Azriel Clary.
So who am I talking to? This is Dr. Rice. Dr. Rice, yeah. Yeah. No, you good.
There's more.
They said that you just got on board about a week or two ago. I don't know. Now he's not willing to give a settlement because you're his spokesperson. Rich just said that you have a new proposition. I just want to know what this proposition is. Well, one of the things I was thinking about, I'm really not his spokesperson though. I know. One of the things that I'm thinking is that you're trying to do something constructive more long term and shaping the image and all of that. But see, there's still a lot of caveats with that also. What happened with your book? Did you hear about what Ernest? And so, relative to books and things like that, but in order to write a book, because I'm a counselor, I'm a licensed counselor, so I understand human behavior and characteristics. and turn it into something that no one else has even viewed it like. If you're asking me, that's not what I think, but you are not denying coming on education. When you say that physical word out of your mouth, you say, it sounds like you're trying to be a manager. And so that's why I was trying to be. Yeah. Right. And you want it to be, I understand what you mean. Right. Okay. Yes. Okay. So I'm just trying to figure out what other type of positions. So I'm not trying to do an interview. So I'm trying to. Oh, no. I don't want to do no interview. Yeah, I feel you. Okay. Yeah, I feel you. Yeah, that wouldn't work anyway because that's not. What other compositions? The only thing I heard you mention was interviews and book deals, but I'm not. Well, no. I said those are some ways, and I said, but what I did say was, if you going down that road, it wouldn't make no difference for me to throw anything out there anyway, because that's the direction you want, and so it's clear it is. So this conversation's over there.
Let's see if there's more.
But I didn't pay any attention because it was inconsequential to me, because nobody had came to me with it. But I was asked my opinion by someone, and I gave my truest opinion. And when I heard my truest opinion. And when I heard from Rich today, since it's been about 3 months, 3 or 4 months since I talked to Rich, and he came to me with this today, I was popping some things with him, and he said, man, I didn't even think about that. And so he may not have told you even all the things he probably told you in the way that I was going at it with Dominique, but it didn't even start that way with Dominique. When I saw her personality and I saw how the communication went, he gave me other ideas, and we were talking about a lot of different things there, and that's how my mind was. And he's bringing to me that you now have a composition, and you're now the spokesperson, you're the one who's handling everything for Rob. Oh, I'm not handling everything for Rob. No, that's not true. I'm not handling everything for Rob. And I'm not trying to destroy him off of what you did or pull it. I'm trying to separate the narrative if you want to go over in another direction. But if you're going to try to get an NDA from it, go that direction. But I understand. I'm not trying to get anything. I'm just trying to figure this out so I can see, like, are they helping him out, or are you just like a neutral party? Like, exactly. I'm neutral. Yeah. I'm neutral, and I see other things. And I'm not trying to destroy him off of what you did or pull it. I'm trying to separate the narrative if you want to go over in another direction. But if you're going to try to get an NDA from him, go that direction. But I understand. I'm not trying to get anything. I'm just trying to figure this out so I can see, like, are they helping him out, or are you just like a neutral party? Right. Exactly. I'm neutral, and I see other things. Okay, guys.
Oh, wow. I definitely don't want to hear that bitch on my shit. But anyway, that's the audio that I got from her raggedy ass. Another participant in this shit to take down R. Kelly. So anyway, that's the audio. Now let me get back to the reading, okay? Because we ain't done. Now, okay, let's finish. At 9:27 p.m., Arline Jr. called I-5 and told I-5 that Jane wanted to have a three-way telephone call with Arline Jr., and I-5 agreed. The three-way call finally took place, which I just played for you guys, at 9:45 p.m. Hashtag 207. During the telephone conversation, Arline Jr. clarified in substance that after Jane Doe initially requested a $2 million settlement, which they didn't play all that in the recording, they only cut and played what they wanted to play. They didn't play the whole thing. But here is the whole recording of the conversation going to be read because they put it in this here paperwork. Now, during the telephone conversation, Arline Jr. clarified in substance that after Jane Doe initially requested a $2 million settlement, Arline Jr. contacted I-2 and I-3, referring to each other by first names. And they said in substance that Kelly could not afford a $2 million settlement. So, like I said, I don't know who I2 is. I don't know who I3 is, but it has been confirmed that there was a conversation between Arline Jr. and contacted I1, I mean I2 and I3. Now, he knew them by their first names. And they said, this has come out of I2 and I3 mouth, in substance, that Kelly could not afford a $2 million settlement. Okay. So let's just clear that up for whoever these individuals are. Now, Arline Jr. explained that the 300,000 settlement came about when I1, whoever I1 is, called him and stated and asked how much, and that I3, okay, then called I2, and I2, whoever you are, you suggested $300,000. So I2 was willing to pay $300,000 to silence Jane Doe along with I3. And now let's continue the reading. Okay, I don't want y'all to get confused here because this is a lot. Now, I5 then told Jane Doe that I5 would contact I2, okay, to find out exactly what I2 meant, and mentioned that I3 had called I5 2 weeks ago and told I5 about the situation. Following that telephone call, Arline Jr. and I5 spoke again at 10:11 p.m. hashtag 209, and I5 suggested that Azriel Clary was a loose cannon. Okay. Now, on Friday, June 11, 2020, Arline Jr. traveled from Chicago to Houston, Texas to celebrate his wife's birthday. During the trip on June 12, 2020 at 11:36 p.m., hashtag 249, at the direction of the law enforcement, Azriel Clary called Richard Arline Jr. and told him, let's just go with the settlement. I don't know if I5 got back to you. Arline Jr. ended the telephone call by telling Azriel Clary, let me see what's going on. I'll have I'll have I have a answer in the morning for the about the money. On June 14th, 2020, Arline Jr. called I3, whoever I3 is, but the telephone call went to voicemail. I3 twice tried to return Arline Jr.'s call, but Arline Jr. did not pick up the calls. Okay. Now, on June 15th, 2020 at 10:45 in the morning, hashtag 289, Arline Jr. and I3 finally connected. During the call, I3 said, I talked to I5. He said you would hit him up. And Arline Jr. said, oh, yeah, I talked to him a little bit. Arline Jr. explained that Jane Doe wanted money to be quiet. Arline Jr. explained that I5 said it would be futile to pay her because Jane Doe probably would not end up cooperating with law enforcement. At the end of the call, Arline Jr., who was still in Houston, said that he would hit I3 when he got back around, i.e., when he returned to Chicago. To date, Jane Doe, Azriel Clary, has not received any money from the defendant, Richard Arline Jr., and it remains unclear whether Kelly, I2, I3, and I4 implicitly or implicitly, okay, authorized Arline Jr. to negotiate a bribe payment on behalf of Kelly. So let's clear this up. R. Kelly, I2, I3, and I4, okay, they don't have enough to say that they were willing to work with Richard Arline and implicate any of them to pay her on the behalf of R. Kelly. Okay, they don't have no records from what I'm reading. As described above, there is probable cause to believe that Arline Jr. in fact sought to coordinate a bribe payment to Jane Doe in exchange for her agreement to cease her cooperation with federal law enforcement regarding the case against pending in the Eastern District of New York, because publicly filing of this document could result in a risk of flight by the defendant as well as jeopardize the government investigation. Your deponent respectfully requests that the complaint and arrest warrant be filed under seal. So, as I go back a notch before I come to the conclusion of the reading, it states that and this is what I gathered from the court trial of R. Kelly. So Richard Arline had robbed his company before. Okay, he set his company up to be robbed along with the John Doe number two. Okay, they both set up the company. Well, Richard did it, and John Doe number two participated. Now, John Doe number two was arrested on an unrelated charge separate from the robbery, and he was in jail. While he was in jail, he needed to get bailed out. R. Kelly was willing to help bail out John Doe number two. So R. Kelly gave Richard Arline bail money for John Doe number two. So Richard Arline ran off with the money and never gave the bail money to John Doe number two, which severed their relationship. And that's why they are not in cahoots or in communications with each other. So it is my personal belief that Richard Arline acted alone and tried to implicate R. Kelly, I2, I3, and I4 to say that he was instructed to try to get $2 million out of I2, I3, and I4. So for his own personal financial gain and to potentially run off on the plug. If he could have got $300,000, he was willing to run off on the plug, okay? Because he's done it before, and whoever well, we know he's connected to Don, so it could potentially been that he instructed him to do this and say it was on the behalf of R. Kelly, because everything Don has done has been stated in his own paperwork that R. Kelly instructed him to do this. R. Kelly instructed him to do that. So here you have it where Richard Arline is doing the exact same thing. This is my conclusion after further readings of this indictment. Like I said, I have never ever read this before prior to today. Now, and then it says wherefore your deponent respectfully requests that the defendant Richard Arline Jr. be dealt with according to law. Okay, and this is a special agent, United States Department of Homeland Security investigator, sworn to before me this fourth day of August 2020 by telephone. So they had already had this indictment in place as of August 2020 last year, and then they sealed it just like they sealed the other guy as Micheal, as well as Don Russell's. Okay, and so now because they were facing their music, now their indictments has been unsealed, and now we're able to read the probable cause of the affidavit for their arrest, and this is why they was arrested. Okay, so even when you read the final page of this Richard Arline, it states the exact same thing that Don Russell contested to, that he allowed because public filing of this document could result in a risk of flight by R. Kelly, as well as jeopardize the government's investigation. Your deponent, which is Richard Arline or Michael Williams or Don Russell, respectfully request that the complaint and arrest warrant be filed under seal. So again, they're trying to throw people under the bus. They're trying to make it appear as if this person is trying to do this. They did not have any evidence to collaborate or corroborate the stories of I2, I3, and I4 stating that R. Kelly authorized any of what you guys just heard in this reading of Richard Arline's arrest, and he still has yet to be sentenced because he did come and participate and try to help the government convict R. Kelly by stating he was a John Doe. So that was something that had came about. So, with that being said, y'all get in the comment section. I'll be reading the comments. I will respond to the comments as I see them coming through. And you guys enjoy the rest of your uh, Tuesday. And I'm back on the clock as I am, so I'll come on as I can. But just stay focused, you guys. Stay aware. Stay on top of y'all game. Don't be bamboozled. Don't be hoodwinkle. I think this brought a lot of revelations to how things came about for R. Kelly and how he got himself, well, he didn't get himself in this situation, but how others put him in this situation. And if you guys heard Jennifer Bonjean speaking on her comment when the article came out about the lawsuit that's against Don Russell and R. Kelly against these alleged Jane Doe, Faith Rogers to be exact, that how they put them together. But if you think about it, that the person that would make the payment by them putting Don Russell and R. Kelly together, who's going to pay off the lawsuit if the settlement does become, granted? R. Kelly would be responsible because Don fat ass ain't got no money. You know what I'm saying? So therefore, he don't have no money, and so that would be who would be paying it would be R. Kelly. So that's why people would connect themselves to him so he could be the payout, and then they can get out through his door because he ain't got no damn money. But like I said, we don't want to implicate innocent people in this mess. But Richard Arline, he was definitely a scammer. It's been proven in R. Kelly's trial when he was cross-examined by yours truly on the screen, Devereaux Canick, and it came out that he set up his own boss to get robbed by his assailant, his co-defendant, John Doe number two, and then also he ran off with John Doe number two bail money when R. Kelly was just trying to do a gesture and help with his bail costs. But this game is dirty, y'all, and we ain't got to the end of it, but we definitely near. And I think with all of what we're doing and breaking this information out, it's being very helpful. But I do believe Dr. Rice was played. He was used just like other people out here being played and used. And you guys can put the pieces together who y'all feel is playing these people, who's pulling these strings, who's behind all this madness surrounding R. Kelly. I have a very strong opinion, and as well as receipts. I'm not going to present them as of yet. I'm going to sit on it, give it some time, and we'll see how this plays out. People, please pay attention. This Don guy is pulling Robert down. Yes, he is, absolutely. But he's not alone. You know what I'm saying? He's not alone, but he's definitely the head of the enterprise. I will consider him the head of the enterprise. I think that these were his charges. I believe that he is the enterprise, and that he's the one who. And if you listen to the reading that I read to you guys about Don, and it state that Don was intimidating witnesses and R. Kelly's associates. So Don has been behind the intimidation of R. Kelly's associates as well as potential alleged witnesses. So his role is at the top of the chain, and it's like he has some type of pull, because it seems like people is intimidated by Don Russell, and they are doing as they are instructed to do by Don Russell. So let's keep the focus on Don Russell. Let's keep the light shine on Don Russell. Let's expose Don Russell, and anybody that's not willing, rather whatever side of the fence you on, if you're gonna call out anybody, call them all out. Identify each person and what their involvement was and what they have done. Let's not brush it under the rug and give Don a pass when Don Russell is dirty. Okay, you can see this clearly. Okay, so at the end of the day, it is what it is. Come on, y'all. Let's be respectful in the chat, y'all. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, whether you like someone or not. We don't want to do the things we used to do. We're gonna move into a positive direction for the sake of Robert Sylvester Kelly, y'all. Let's come together over here. If we don't do nothing else, let's come together over here for the sake of Robert Sylvester Kelly, because he got enough people fighting amongst each other, thieves fighting amongst thieves, people trying to distract and take away. The bottom line is Don is dirty, and that's the bottom line. We know that for a fact. His information is out here. He's the one, I suspect, who rallied up Richard Arline as well as Michael Williams. And now what we're seeing is a replay of the way they put Don Russell put people in place to go prior to R. Kelly's trial to get R. Kelly convicted. So what we saw prior in this trial that R. Kelly just was convicted in was Don Russell's playbook. Don Russell literally allowed Richard and Michael to do things on his behalf and say, well, R. Kelly instructed you. Just say R. Kelly told you to do this, and R. Kelly is the one that's gonna get fucked up. Okay, that's why what don't make sense to me is Don Russell stated that he couldn't have both power of attorney and the masters. He said because he just couldn't have them both, because if he get caught, then uh, uh, then one of them will get fucked up. So who is he talking about? I think we got to go back and listen again and break down what's going on. No matter who with Don, black and white don't lie, right? And so definitely he's dirty. And so I just ask that the people over here that we support each other. I'm gonna give both y'all wrenches, see Toronto and Mrs. Duncan. I'm gonna need y'all to get it together fast in the chat, please, y'all. Not over here. Let's respect each other, because, like I said, we got enough thieves fighting amongst thieves. We don't want to implicate ourselves in that mess. Let's just stay focused. If you agree or you disagree, it's okay to agree to disagree, but we don't need to fight over here. Let them fools do what they do. Sit back, watch the show. Put your get your pens and pads out and start taking notes. Oh, before I go, I definitely one of my subscribers asked that I did a research on the information that's being misled out here about how to send money to R. Kelly. So I took it upon myself to call the prison, and this is what I came up with.
11232. If you know the extension of the party you're trying to reach, please dial it now. For social visits, press 1. For legal visits, press 2. To send money to an inmate via money order or government check, press 3. Funds must be received in the form of a money order or government check. No personal checks will be accepted. Please send funds to Federal Bureau of Prisons, the inmate register number, the inmate's name, Post Office Box 474701, Des Moines, Iowa 50947 0001. To hear this again, press 3. Turn to funds must be received in the form of a money order or government check. No personal checks will be accepted. Please send funds to Federal Bureau of Prisons, the inmate register number, the inmate's name, Post Office Box 474701, Des Moines, Iowa 50947 0001. To hear this again, press 3. To return to main, funds must be received in the form of a money order or government check. No personal checks will be accepted. Please send funds to Federal Bureau of Prisons, the inmate register number, the inmate's name, Post Office Box 474701, Des Moines, Iowa 50947 0001. To hear this again, press 3.
And so that's what I got. And just in case you guys are looking at other people who posting this information saying R. Kelly told them that he's not getting his money, they have put the incorrect information in there as well. Well, they put some accurate, but they left out some for those who wants to send money through money order or government check. Federal Bureau of Prison inmate registration number is 09627-035, which you don't put the dash in there. That is correct. The inmate name is Robert Sylvester Kelly. The PO, but I want y'all to check what I'm saying. Matter of fact, if you got a device, go on your device. Everybody go over there to that girl who tried to copy me in court channel, okay, and watch her misinformation that she put out here for y'all. And I want y'all to look at it while I'm live, and y'all can put this together with what I have just read from y'all, and you can listen to the audio playback, not my voice, but the prison telling you this address. Okay, it's PO Box 474701. She put 4701. You are not going to get your information sent to R. Kelly if you put it over there as she has put it, claiming that she's in communication with R. Kelly, which is fraudulent information. But hey, I'm just a blogger who does her research and cross T's and dot I's. The correct address is P.O. Box 474701. That's what was missing. She failed to put the other 47. She only put 4701. Maybe she was excited. Maybe she just hella want to get some information out here and convince y'all that she's in communication with R. Kelly, which is not true. But I know this to be a known fact. Okay. These are other members of Don Russell, the PI, and everybody else that's a part of the takedown of R. Kelly. So the correct information is as follows, and I will put it here in the chat as I have gathered it up off of the actual website and speaking directly to someone other than just listening to an audio recording. Okay, so this is the information, and this is the facts, and this is the accurate information for y'all. Okay, um, and this is going to be put in the chat, and I'll highlight it for you guys. Okay. Okay, so the inmate is Robert Sylvester Kelly. And then you want to put literally on the side of his name, there's going to be inmate. Wait. Oops. Sorry, y'all. Sylvester Kelly, that's a partial of it. And I'll put this also in the description. So that way y'all have it in the description. So people that want to send money all sorts of ways, you can send it, and you can call in as well and send the money. Present business investor. So let me see. Okay, so this is how you guys do it. Okay. Like I said, people be so quick to give y'all information and not even fact checking what they put out here and swearing what they doing is accurate. And I don't know if that's on purpose so he can't get the money, but over here we will make sure he gets the money. Okay. Now, okay, so money order or government check, federal bureau. Okay. Prison inmate registration number, which is 09627035, and then his name, inmate name, Robert Sylvester Kelly, and then it's a P.O. Box, okay, 474701. Okay, Des Moise, Moise, and that's Iowa. And then the zip is 50947 dash 0001. Now that's how you send money to R. Kelly. Okay. If anybody wants to send him a money order or a check, there is also MoneyGram. You do the same thing. You put R. Kelly on the MoneyGram. You put his jail number, and then you put last name only, and then the company names, federal. Like I said, all this stuff is going to be in the description. I'll make sure that I add that at the end of this live. But R. Kelly only trust Keith. That's when people lying on Keith. Yeah, they're going to continue to lie on Keith because they know that that's the only person that he has in his corner. Okay, that's confirmed. That's a confirmation that I will definitely publicly announce. So again, whoever these people are, I don't know who I 2 and 3 and 4 5 and all that stuff is, but definitely they was being lied on. They was being misled by Richard Arline, because I believe Richard Arline was trying to get her to agree on some money that I personally believe Richard Arline, if he would have been able to receive that money, I believe he was going to run off on the plug the same way he ran off with a couple of thousands of dollars that R. Kelly did um give to Richard Arline prior to help out with bail for John Doe number two. Okay, so I do believe that personally. I guess that's all for now. I will come back again because I have another reading that I want to do with you guys. So, like I said, we're going to be breaking down things that's important. You guys can go continue to entertain the foolery, but what I will not do moving forward is I will not be putting out my opinion until after each reading, because I noticed when I posted yesterday that we already was aware about R. Kelly being alleged having sex with moms and daughters, and we heard this come from Don. So all they did was took out the names of whoever they would have said and tried to clean it up based on us jumping the gun. So it's in the best interest that we it's in our best interest that we don't respond to when we see the clown trying to put titles out here about what's going to be next read. It's that let the reading happen and then come and put your opinion. I won't be personally doing any videos about it because it's a lie as far as I'm concerned. It has never been confirmed. And the fact that the individual who's in communication with me has yet to call me back to confirm it leads me to believe he don't want to lie to me and tell me something that I'm not going to believe, because I cross T's and I dot I's. So it was safe to say he was smart for the move he made. But definitely don't be bamboozled, y'all, because I'm not going to be responding when I see titles. I'm going to wait until after, because if I say something too soon, that gives them a chance to go back and clean it up. Just the fact how I put out Cash Jones, this is her newest book, Behind the Mole, and this is her premiere reading. She didn't try to sell it this time. She's just reading it off on a clown's channel. So I personally feel that she will not be able to release this book now, even though she released it, but she froze it from being sold. So you can't get the content, you can't find it nowhere, because she never ever put it up for sale. So and she's gonna have hard work to do now. That means you're gonna have to go back and rewrite your book because you allowed a clown to read it, and you said it was from R. Kelly, because that's what people out here been doing, is putting everything off on R. Kelly. He tried to call Keith out because he tried to save that ass. Exactly. And so again, we clearly see what's happening. We are over here, we woke, we not sleep to the beat, and we can clearly see that these people is trying to implicate innocent people and stuff, and trying to attack his true supporters. So if Keith is being attacked, he must be a real supporter. I'm being attacked, I know I'm a real supporter. Anybody being attacked got to be a real supporter. If you're not getting attacked, you ain't a supporter. So thank y'all for just keeping my channel clean, not getting caught up in the drama when people make videos pertaining to me. They're irrelevant. They got their own demons chasing them, and they trying to get somebody to chase me, and I'm not going. So anyway, that was my time. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you haven't hit the like button on your way in, please hit it on your way out. And I will see you guys really, really soon. Okay. I'm gonna come on camera, but right now I'm just incognito because I like how I'm moving, and it feels so lovely, because I feel like I did when I came in 2019 Excuse me, and I didn't show myself. So this is good. I can get my content and my commentary clear and out here because yeah, and you're right, sis, because I'm telling the truth, because they don't attack a lie, so you must be telling the truth. You know what I'm saying? This probably has happened because they never thought it would go so far. I agree. I definitely agree with you on that, Leslie. I do. You know what I'm saying? I knew something was weird when and the crew was pushing the Western Union. So why was it getting the money? Yeah. So just go over there to that girl who was trying to copy me and writing my notes in court, and you go match up. She left out the 47. So if you don't put 4747 and you put 4701, you liable to get a return message back to yourself because the facts are that information was false. And like I said, these people is connected to them fake sisters is vouching for the clown. You got too many people vouching for the clown. And so all I say is, if you don't watch the clown, then they don't have a show to perform. But as soon as you give the clown attention, then they have an audience, and now they're going to continue to perform. So just be mindful of who you watch, who you support, and let's not be infiltrated any further moving forward. 2022 is going to be a great year. Free R. Kelly and free them all. Free Larry Hoover is what I'm yelling. And since I'm a straight shooter, you already know. Kel said it best. Pieces.
Shooter, you shot me in the heart, and I've been dying since we've been apart. Oh, shooter, I don't think I'm gonna make it. See, I'm just as good as dead. I'm good as dead. Whoa, bullseye. Girl, you shot me down to my knees, yeah. Since you took your love from me, and I'm holding on to the hopes that you will return. Although I feel I've lost you forever, I will believe that you still love me. Girl, say you do, say you do, say you do, say you do. Say you still love me, shooter, shooter, yeah. You shot me in the heart, oh yeah. Hard. Oh, 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 shooter, shooter. I don't think I'm gonna make it. No, and I'm just as good as dead. Ooh, ooh, ooh. See, I neglected the fact that your love was precious, and I should have took more better care of me. And now every minute you're gone, girl, I sit here just dying alone. And I wish that I could have dodged that bullet of you leaving me. Shooter, shooter, you shot me in the heart. And I've been dying since we've been apart, yeah. Oh, shooter, no, no. Oh, I don't think that I'm gonna make it. No, no, no. And I'm just as good as it ain't, yeah.
Pieces.